Hello everybody, I'd like to welcome everyone to the Children and Young People Scrutiny panel today. Thank you for giving up your Halloween to be here. I'd just like to do a bit of housekeeping. So if there is a fire alarm, there is not a fire practice expected. So if we hear the sound of the fire alarm, we need to leave the building as quickly as possible by way of the nearest assembly point at the public square outside Cast, beyond the fountain, away from the civic office. No roll call can be undertaken, thank you. If anyone has mobility issues, please wait in the refuge area at the top of the stairs where the emergency evacuation lift is located, and use the intercom situated to the left-hand side of the lift doors to call for assistance. Can I ask that everybody ensures that their mobile phone is switched to silent mode, please? This meeting will be audio-visually recorded and will be available to view on the Council's website and YouTube channel. Can I ask all those present to use their microphones to ensure audio can be captured? Any members of the public entering the Council chamber are accepting that their images will be retained and broadcast by the Council. If there are any members of the public or press intending to record or film any part of today's meeting, please ensure that this does not disturb the conduct of the meeting. If you are visually recording, you are requested to only focus on recording. So first of all, we'll do the apologies for absence. We've got Councillor Moran, Councillor Bluff, and Assistant Director Lee Goltz. I don't know if anybody knows of anybody else. Okay. So we need to consider the extent, if any, to which the public and press are to be excluded from the meeting. And there are nothing on the agenda this evening that would require any exclusions. Declarations of interest. If anybody wants to declare an interest, please contact Christine Rothwell after the meeting and she will assist. Okay, so now I need to go to the minutes of the Children and Young People's Overview and Scrutiny panel meeting held on the 16th of March 2023. Can this be agreed that these are a true and correct record? Agreed. Thank you. I understand that we have no public statements planned for this evening's meeting, so I'll just give a brief overview and then hand over to the officers. Just want to mention that we did have a really fantastic visit to the Adwick Family Hub as a panel, and Woodlands Library as well. We were able to chat to people who kindly gave up their time, and the presentation today will extend on those conversations. There are many officers here today who also helped at the visit and wish to be part of the discussions this evening. We also have members of the Youth Council and the Young Advisors. I'd like to welcome you all. Thank you. So I'll hand over for the presentation now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hemsworth. It's lovely to be here tonight, and it's lovely to have all my colleagues with me tonight to kind of showcase the work that we are doing. We've put a presentation together for you this afternoon around child poverty in particular and the offer that we have. We have made slight amends to the presentation that was shared with you prior, but hopefully that will be self-explanatory when we get there. Happy to take some questions, but can I just check with John, are we going to do our presentation first and then the young people theirs? Okay. Brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to hand over to Alison. Alison is our Head of Service for Early Help and Family Helps. I can't remember what your title is, Alison, but she's amazing and she does everything to do with family helps and early help. So she's going to take you through the presentation. I don't know how you would want to do it, whether you want to stop throughout the presentation to ask questions, or would you want to give us an opportunity to finish the presentation first?
I think we'll let you finish the presentation first. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then I just want to say thank you to you who visited our family hub and the library. People fed back that you enjoyed yourself, they enjoyed themselves. I don't know if members and officers should be mingling like that and having fun together. I don't know if that's a good thing. No, it's a really good thing. So thank you for the opportunity. I'll hand over to Alison.
Thank you. So I am new. I'm going to say I'm new. So I'm a new head of service for early intervention and prevention. It's only my second time in front of you today, so I welcome being here. And I've brought the wonderful colleagues as well. We wanted to bring the passion that you felt and saw in the visit, because sometimes the presentations don't do it justice. We've also got one of our lovely parents who attends the Family Hub here today as well, who will be happy to sort of answer any questions as well. We have got a presentation. I know you said you were willing to wait till the end, but if you feel free to ask questions as we go through the presentation if you want to as well, because there might be some information that you want to just ask further questions for, and that's absolutely fine. You've got a copy, a covering report that I don't intend to go through today with you, but hopefully you've all received that, read that, and it just gives you an introduction of why we're doing what we're doing within the Family Hub framework, and also the Your Family support teams that we've got out there as well. So in terms of this presentation, I'm really conscious of time. We've got so much to talk about. When we think about child poverty, it's really important to recognise that it isn't just the offices in Doncaster Council that respond to that. It is actually a whole partnership approach to supporting children, young people and families in our localities in Doncaster. We really valued the visit when you did come out. It was lovely to see some of you here today as well that did come to that visit. And I think your feedback as well at the end of that visit was about, it's not just about seeing it in practice and hearing the stories and just people relaxing in the place as well, which is really, really powerful. So the visit took place on the 20th of September. It was in two parts. So we had a visit to the Adwick Family Hub, where there was quite a lot of partnerships there. There's a list on the presentation of all the different partnerships that were represented at that visit. And then also followed up into Woodlands Library, where the Your Families team were there, and also with a whole range of different partners that showcase the work that we do to support children, people and families around child poverty. As you can see, there's a whole range of organisations there that contribute. The feedback we got at the end of the session was really, really powerful. I think, I'll come on to the themes that came out of that discussion. Hopefully this presentation will give it justice. There were some questions that you had when we submitted the presentation, the report, that I've tried to incorporate that into the presentation as we go along, so we're answering your questions. So the themes of the conversation that came out of the visit was around the family voice and the value of conversations and the value of making services really accessible to children, people and families, and being in the place. It's not about, different referral forms and people being referred into different services. It's about belonging to that place. And staff are really passionate that you met in Adwick around the support that we offer, the relationships we build with our children, people and families in those areas. I think belonging to the place as well, whilst we have 12 physical Family Hub buildings, we do lots of outreach, and I'll show you that later on. And also our Your Families team are doing lots of outreach to lots of different venues to reach as many families as possible. One of the things that we'll go through with Reverend Stephen is around that you can't just see one factor of child poverty on its own. It has to be that wraparound approach and that multidisciplinary approach to supporting children, people and families. And also the range of support there's an offer in Doncaster, and also the emotional wellbeing support and the mental health support that's provided with the whole raft of wraparound. And I think one of the things that came out really quite powerful in the visit, and again I can't bring justice to that in a presentation, is the impact of what services do for families, and actually what impact families have for us as services, as well as we hear their voice and we hear their lived experience, and how powerful that is for us as officers. So you wanted some information around sort of child poverty data. So we've got some graphs here, hopefully you can see those. And these are taken, the first graph is actually taken from Action for Children, and it shows how child poverty in our area has changed over time. So the way that's reported is Don Valley, Doncaster Central and Doncaster North over the years. And you can see that we've had a bit of a decrease in 2021-22. When we look at that data, what that means for Doncaster North is 31% of children in Doncaster North were in poverty in 21-22. That equates to 7,101 child, and 57% of those children in poverty are within working families. In Doncaster Central, it's 31.3%, and that equates to 7,483 children, and 63% of these children in poverty in this area are in working families. And Don Valley is 27.2%, and that equates to 5,748 children, and 64% of children in this area are working families. There's also been a recent report published from Action for Children. Actually, it's just come out on the 18th of October, so we're still reading it and digesting it really. And it talks about the rise of cost of living and the impact of that on children, and it's taken from the Financial Fairness Trust Financial Tracker in May 23. And the evidence that's coming through on that when they've spoken to over 5,000 families is in that families with children are more likely to be experiencing financial hardship. 1 in 5 households with children, an estimated 1.5 million, are in serious financial difficulties. That's 19% compared to 13% of families without children. Families with children were 6 times as likely to have a prepayment meter installed in the 6 months between November 22 and May 23, and that's affecting 475,000 households. And that's 6% compared to 1% of non-working families. This is national, it's not Doncaster data yet, it's national data. They are 3 times more likely to have fallen behind on bills. That's 27% compared to 9%. And debt repayments is 25% compared to 7% where they don't have children. And 6 times more likely to have had to turn to unlicensed or informed lenders. And that's 6% compared to 1%. Twice as likely to have been behind on rent or mortgage payments. That's 10% compared to 4% without children. And have gone without food or missed multiple meals. That's 15% compared to 8%. They are more likely to have their health has been affected by financial worries. So families with children are around 50% more likely to report their mental health. That's 47% compared to 31%. And their sleep has suffered due to their financial worries, and that's 45% compared to 29%. Single parents are particularly struggling to meet the basic needs, and this is markedly more likely to be on household bills, and they're going without food and report problems around housing and ability to pay debt as well. So Action for Children have a number of recommendations that they will do to lobby Parliament around some changes. And I think the changes to universal credit have started to make a difference, and that's why we can see the dip in 21-22. The next slide on there, I thought just really to show you, is the distribution of child poverty across the English regions in 21-22. So the Yorkshire and Humber is the red line. I don't know if you can see, but there's a little blue line just right in the middle, and that's where our Doncaster areas are. And I just thought just to show you that in comparison with other regions. You then wanted it broken down into wards, so we've managed to get this information from our performance colleagues, again by ward and 21-22. It's got P in the data because I think it's still provisional, it's not fully been published yet. But that's just a breakdown of the wards, and this is the number of children in your areas that are experiencing child poverty through relative income. So it's where the income is 60% less than the mean. As you can see, the number of children is reducing from 2018-19 to 21-22. When we talk about child poverty, there's a lot of factors that influence child poverty, and this diagram was given at the visit really, and it's looking at the factors that are used in the child poverty basket in the national indicator set and the factors that contribute to child poverty. What we were trying to do in the visit is show you all the services, how they contribute to each one of these triangles. You can't just operate one triangle on its own. It has to be, across the board, really. And hopefully you did see that when you spoke to the staff and the families within the visits around the support that was offered. So, for example, we'll go on a bit more when I show you some more data, and we listen to some of the families around the financial support, the cost of living, but also how we look at, obviously, education, how we support our parents and carers to go into volunteering and developing their skills to gain employment, how we do functional maths and English within, obviously, the buildings across Doncaster as well, childcare, how we're contributing to supporting children and people to access to their 2- and 3-year-old funding, and also the new initiative around the new early years entitlement, which will increase the free childcare places for working parents, and the wraparound support to make sure that children, people and families have support from 8 a.m. in the morning till 6 p.m. at night. So all of these outcomes there contribute to the child poverty basket, and we've tried to show you how we're all working towards these. I don't know if you wanted to add anything about education and skills in there.
So just to say that we are doing our best to bring services closer together in terms of education, skills, and then our social care and early intervention work. in terms of education, we know that the more children are in education, the better they do at school, the better their life chances on later on. So we're working really, really hard to increase attendance, look at inclusion figures in terms of reducing permanent exclusions, suspensions, and all of those kind of things, but making sure that children are in education as much as they can be. And we have seen a positive impact on our educational outcomes this year for all of our children across all phases and stages, which means that they will have better life chances in the end.
Thank you. So just to explain how we operate in Doncaster, really. So we talk about local help and early help. And local help is having conversations in the place and being available in communities for children, people and families to access at any time. So you will have seen, obviously, within the family hubs and the Your Place, those conversations that take place around the local help. We then have early help, and that's our sort of early intervention. So some families may need some additional support. It might be one agency doing that. And the Your Family sort of triage conversations actually take place, and they do a little bit of intervention with the family. So maybe it's around debt, and they support that family to access the right agency around debt. It could be, though, that we have families that need more extensive support, and we need to do what we call a shared assessment. So we look at the assessment of the child, the young person and the family as a whole. We do the whole family assessment, and we look at what support needs could be put in place for that family. When we look at the top presenting needs that come into both local help and early help in Doncaster, the top presenting needs are in this list. So that financial support, housing, education and adult learning, childcare and employment, place-based issues, parenting, whole family support and relationships, mental well-being, physical well-being and behaviour. And all of those actually factor in as a child poverty factor that we're working towards to mitigate. So this little map, it did take us quite a long time to do this little map because there's quite some technological skills involved in this. We wanted to show you how we deliver services across the whole of Doncaster. Obviously, we are very lucky in Doncaster that we have kept 12 family hub physical buildings. Not all local authorities have done that, and with the new family hub delivery model in place, more local authorities are now bringing their family hubs back into place, which is amazing. So we're really thankful in Doncaster that we've kept those. And then we show our family hub outreach. So we don't just deliver in a physical building. We want to be across the whole of Doncaster delivering different services. And we look at the need. We use a lot of data analysis to look at where do we need to go in terms of supporting children, people and families. You've then got your Place, Your Family teams and where they're located, and then also the outreach that they do. And hopefully that map there just shows you how it is distributed across the whole of Doncaster. So we have now got a 30-minute video. We were going to bring families, Councillor Hemshaw asked for some families to come, and luckily we have one of our parents here today, but we have got a video of 4 families that want to talk about their experience. Now, when we videoed this, it wasn't 40 minutes long, so we have tried to keep it short and sharp. We've also, obviously, to protect anonymity, because this is going out in public faces, we have blanked out the faces because we're hoping to make an animation of this moving forward, so we can use this so more families see it as well.
I ended up being a single parent. My partner walked out on me and my little girl, and she was 2-week-old, which led me to be in financial difficulties, not being able to keep my home and afford food. It got very difficult for me, which ended up isolating myself and not reaching out for help because I didn't want to reach to my parents because I felt like I was like a burden on them. So with me neglecting myself, not eating properly and things like that, I began to struggle a lot with my mental health, my anxiety, my moods, even just meeting people because I thought I was completely different and I was more embarrassed. So I did get the support from the family hub, which because of the anxiety, I didn't want to be in public. So they supported me by coming to my home where I were, made me feel more comfortable. And I had a support worker out and she helped me do different activities, and we got a really strong bond together, and it helped me set goals, which I never used to set goals. I just used to just just do things and just hope for the best, basically. They helped me just focus on myself because I wasn't looking after myself. So the main important thing were myself, so that I can be the best mum, the best friend, the best daughter and things like that. So after doing the activities, I realised that it made me a better mum. I could be that better person. So I did start to go out there and start to go to the family hubs with the support around me. And there were times where I was struggling to put food on the table because I was struggling to go to work and afford the childcare. Even though I was a working parent, I could not afford the little things, like even some snacks and things like that. You know, at night time, I could not afford that. It were just little tins in the cupboard. So the support where I had food banks, so they reached out to the right people for me because I didn't have a clue how to do that. So they looked for other help beyond them, what other things I could have. So yeah, they really, really helped me in that way. But with the coping mechanisms that I have been taught from the family hub, it's made me be more stronger and more confident in myself. Don't get me wrong, like last week I could not go to the shop without my daughter being there. I couldn't do a lot of things. But when I come to the family hub, because I've had that nothing but support from them, I feel like it is an open space to come to. So if I do come here, I can come without my child. You know, usually I couldn't go to the shop without her or things like that. So now it's, you know, the support out there that I know I can come here and it's a safe bubble that I can come to and not get that really bad anxiety. And like I said, I do get my bad days still, but remembering how much support you have got, you just remember to try and like think positive, because you do think very negative, and I do, and that's what my main challenge were, of thinking negative, something bad's going to happen all the time. But when you hear other people's stories and you hear that feedback from a support worker saying you've done so well, if you could see yourself now, it makes that difference to you. Like, you're not just no one, you are someone with feelings, and it's normal to feel the way you do at times. So after a bit, I did get, I got better. Not better, I started to cope a lot more. And the case was closed after a bit. So I did get my house. And then after a year later, the support worker, even though the case was closed, she still came out and made sure that I was happy in the house I was in and making sure my child was fine. And it's that makes a difference. Like, they didn't have to do that. They came out their own way just to see if I was fine. There is people out there that do care, and it's not just a job, basically. That's what made me realise it's not just a job, and it is the person and the support that they offer that makes a difference. When I finally came to the support, it opened loads of doors to me, even to do like parenting courses. Like, if my child's kicking off, you know, you're not doing it wrong, there is different courses you can do for free and just learn about your child and learn different things. So since learning all that, I learned myself as well. So it's important, because if it weren't for the support I had today, I would not be here today. I really wouldn't. I wouldn't have made it.
The challenge is my son is dyslexic and he's autism also, and he had what you call this the path in your place. They showed me what to do and how to fill the forms and where the path for me to go, and to fill this DLA and those forms. Sorry about my English, some places I don't know to say this. So all the parts, they showed me how to go. And for my son, even now they are finding if he have any transport, because he's very timid and all, and he's a lot of autism having, because so from my your place, they help me a lot, the support, especially if this for my son. I got support, and I can buy him extra things, because only my husband is earning. I'm not earning, because I had to stay one-to-one with him to go and drop him to school, to bring him after school. Because like I was in another country, I'm lost. I don't know anything. So it's a great help. Like, the God came down and helped me, like. So they're helping me.
Well, I was down rock bottom, going through DV. Then it was the supporting families who helped me to get through that, when my family and keep us safe. And that was a challenge I had. But when I first went in there, I just felt like I had no help at all, because I was down rock bottom at first, you do, because of my mental health and stuff. So that was the challenge I had. I got the support and the right paths where to go to stop us feeling like that as a family, stopping the family splitting, getting closer and getting to know people. Thought, what was the point of going on in life? But I got through it. As a family, you have to, because I've got kids to think about. I can't think of ending my life or anything like that. So the supporting of a supporting family got me through that. They've helped loads. They've got me furniture and helped the kids and got the kids into school. But I've just got a problem with the other kid trying to get her into school at the minute. It's just been a nightmare. It's been like a roller coaster, but I've got there. In the end, I have to as a mother. It's made me feel safe and the kids. And that's all my worry is about as a mother. I've got to keep my kids safe. And these did. They made me feel safe. And they come and chat to me. Without their support, I don't think I would have felt safe. We've been a closer family because when I was going through all this, I didn't give a damn about anything. Blocked everything away. And like it's made us closer as a family, and now we should be a family. Gone closer with the kids and made them safe to make them out of danger instead of putting them into danger. And that's what my worry's done. I got my kids into danger and they didn't need to see all that, what went on. But I've come better out of it now.
I became a new parent in July 2020, sort of just as we sort of all locked down and we were still under restrictions. And I had it in my head that I would have this sort of like village of support around me, and it didn't really work out like that. So I found myself kind of with this baby stuck at home pretty much all day. Like my daughter was sort of like getting sick of seeing me, and I was almost like sick of seeing her. We were just trapped in these four walls together, and she was getting quite difficult for me to manage on my own because, like, you know, my husband went back to work after 2 weeks as a key worker, so I was just finding it quite sort of challenging, sort of quite claustrophobic, and I didn't feel like I was doing very well as a parent. So when I saw that there was like an online parenting baby course put on by the Family Hubs, I joined up to that. And it was like the one time in the week where I actually sort of connected with other parents. Obviously, we were getting the professional sort of information and advice as well from the staff that were running the course. It sort of like helped me to grow in confidence in sort of going out there with my child and sort of like knowing what to do with my child, how to play with her, how to communicate with her, how to help her with her development. And I would say that pretty much every milestone that I remember her meeting as a baby, I remember a lot of it was while I was at the hubs sort of thing. So when she first started going off to play with other children, when she first sort of veered away from me a little bit, when she first started walking, you know, all the staff could see the development, and they'd comment and say, "Oh wow, like, you know, how well is she doing?" I always found the staff like really supportive. It's like they've got this sixth sense of they can tell when they look at you, they know what sort of a week you've had, and it was just having that sort of supportive, non-judgmental person that was listening and sort of understanding where you're coming from, and offering some advice really of what you could try. It just made me feel kind of really understood, and it sort of like brought home this concept of, you know, you don't have to be a perfect parent. I think that really sort of had an impact on my child as well, because as my confidence and mental health got better, you know, she was happier, she was more content, she was, you know, more confident to go out and, you know, interact with other children socially. Her language developed. I saw her develop in like every way, really, emotionally, sort of cognitively. So I did the Being a Parent course, and I found that sort of really, really beneficial. It was great, sort of meeting other parents that were in a similar situation, that similarly felt like, you know, I could do with some extra support and advice around parenting. It's, you know, it's not easy. So then I decided to do the Parent Group Leader course, which I'm doing now. And that's to prepare me to then be able to deliver the Being a Parent course to other parents that would like that extra support. We all have good days and bad days. We all, you know, wake up on the wrong side of the bed, or we have certain challenges, stuff going on. We all make mistakes, but that doesn't mean that we're bad parents. You know, by and large, most of the time, we're doing our best, and we can always reflect and think about how we can sort of do better sort of next time. So I'm hoping that through doing this course, I can then share with other parents, or, you know, other people that I'm connected to in the community and, you know, my wider family, what I've learned, and that can then have almost like a snowball effect and a wider impact on other parents and other families that might be struggling. I never thought that I would have come that far from really not knowing what I was doing, being really uncertain of myself, to now feeling confident that I could, in the near future, be able to share like the knowledge that I've learned, and to support parents and empower parents to understand that they're doing a great job, that it is hard, but also that there are other strategies that could help, you know, make things easier for them as well.
Thanks, John. So the next slide, while John's just bringing that up, I'd like to introduce Reverend Stephen Gardner, who, well, for those that came to the visit, Reverend Stephen was there to support about the work he does around his church and the food banks.
Good afternoon, councillors. Thank you very much to those who have been responsible for inviting me here. Very quickly, I want to just explain what the food bank is, how it came about, give you some of the information about the numbers of people we're supporting and the types of people we're supporting, because I think that will help with the conversation today. And then just think a little bit about those connections and how the connections with the family hubs have been particularly useful. The food bank launched in May 2020 during the COVID lockdowns. We cover basically the Adwick ward with a little bit of extra, because the church boundaries don't quite match the council boundaries, which causes me some great fun at times. We're not unique. I don't want to pretend that All Saints Food Bank is doing anything that's not being replicated across the borough. In fact, there are 3 other food banks at one stage operating just within the same area as us. We're a referral-only food bank. We take referrals from council, from the council hub that was established during COVID, from key workers, many of the colleagues around behind me, from schools, from doctors, and from churches. That just allows me to refer people into the service if I need to. We're volunteer run. We're entirely volunteer run. The only person that gets paid any money for doing any of this role is me. And that's working across an area. The partnership of churches that I lead covers that area, and we reckon the population's about 21,000 people. The other local food banks were self-referral food banks when they started. Interestingly, 2 of those have now moved on to a referral system, and the last one isn't as active in the community as it was. We were supported by the council, and can I just say thank you so much if you voted for some of that funding for food banks. Thank you. I can't tell you how much of an impact and difference that's made, so I am incredibly grateful for that. Although we also get funding from other funders, but also we're receiving about £5,000 a year in donations from what I would call private donors, people who are friends of the church, people in the villages who have a little bit of extra money that are wanting to help and support that, plus donations through various collection points for donated goods. Between March 2020 and September 2021, we provided approximately 1,500 boxes to families and individuals across our area. In September 21, we changed our referral system so that we could have a more nuanced look at the people we were supporting. Since then, we've supported 148 households. 88 of those households are families. That's 212 adults, 231 children. 3/4 of our recipients are families. The vast majority of those are single-parent families. Referrals run on a 6-weekly cycle. Our average referral length is about 12 weeks, though we have some that are just emergency to see them through a couple of weeks, some who may have 30 weeks worth of referrals. We do have 5, or we did have, because some have either moved on or one person sadly died as a result of the issues that they faced. Long-term referrals. There's one person who's struggling with benefits. They're not a part of a family, but they've been on our referral list since September 2021, and they're still struggling with the benefits issues. That means that we're feeding them every week. I could get quite angry, but I shall try not to. The reasons for those referrals: benefits issues, disputes, sanctions. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. Debt, particularly now utility debt, is increasingly one of the issues. Reduced hours at work, people being offered less hours. People fleeing domestic abuse, as you saw on the presentation. We've seen both male and female victims of domestic abuse needing our support. And one of the most difficult ones that we've encountered is people being forced to move. The support given to some of our poorest families when they have to move house from one private rented accommodation to another is woefully inadequate, and the cost of that is immense. We've seen a lot of referrals around those sort of forced relocations. These aren't families choosing to move to a different part of town. These are families who are being kicked out by landlords and being forced to spend money they don't have, and so they don't eat. Our key relationship, we made the choice to be a referral food bank, and I'm so glad that we did. Our key relationship is with our referrers. The 6-week cycle of referral that we do means that the client is required to keep engaging with their referrer. It allows us to put a little pressure on them to remain engaged with the key workers who are working with them. It's not just food bank and forget. We actually retain a connection with those referrers. The family hubs are key partners because they get to see more clearly, perhaps than any of our other referrers, perhaps other than the schools, the impact on the children of the poverty that the parents are facing. I don't need to tell you, there's a huge amount of shame involved in trying to access a food bank. And I know there's many people, I can only speak for the Adwick Hub because that's the one we have the contact with, who've been gently encouraged to start coming to be part of a food bank client. And initially, it's had to be staff members that have come and collected the boxes because the parents were just too ashamed to even come into our community centre. It's a private setting where they come. They were too ashamed even to do that. And the work of some of the people behind me in enabling parents to access that has been extraordinary. It's that early identification of food poverty that really makes a difference. When we have to run around with food boxes because a family have got nothing in the cupboard, I would much rather be doing this while the family have still got some resources of their own. And the partnerships, particularly with the family hubs, enables that earlier intervention. We don't get to crisis, we get to challenging before we're able to put support in place. One of my favourite quotes is from Archbishop Desmond Tutu, famously from South Africa. And he says, there comes a point where we need to stop just pulling people out of the river. We need to go upstream and find out why they're falling in. For us, at All Saints Church and through the food bank, we're looking to establish, through a partner organisation called EDGE, an EDGE centre, providing debt, benefit and housing advice and advocacy fully supported by the Financial Conduct Authority, fully regulated through a charity that we're working with. We're hoping to have that finally up and running by Easter next year, but then looking to make use of the connections that we have across our partners to enable them to directly refer people into that, not even just through the food bank, but also directly into that. And I know that the Your Place teams are doing that work as well. But what we found is that there are so many families in need, and there are so many families who have barriers to particular connections. We connect with families in particular ways. We've got one church event, and about 90% of the children who come have got clearly identified, statemented special needs. And those families we can particularly help and support, but also encourage them to start engaging with some of the other agencies locally that they may not have engaged with because of their own reluctance to do that. The family hubs provide those people on the ground. It's great having people working centrally or working across the borough, but I would say that one pair of feet on the ground is worth 5 pairs of feet under a desk. And the people behind me are very much on the ground. Impact, if I can say you'll forgive me, 3 brief anecdotes about impact. One, you will never know the joy on a parent's face when given a set of baby wipes. It's awful. It's wonderful. Sanitary products. A family came in one of the days when I was helping out with 2 teenage girls, and we just had a donation from the Hygiene Bank. I'd like to flag the work that they do, which is exceptional. We had some sanitary products out, and the mum said, "Oh, we'll take one of those." And I said, "You can take one each." And I'll never forget the look on her face. And the third one, particularly as it relates to younger families, we had a donation of toothbrushes, children's toothbrushes and toothpaste. And this child held this toothbrush. You thought they'd been given the biggest bag of sweets they'd ever had. And the mum said, "You've got a toothbrush of your own now. You won't need to use mummy's." And that broke my heart. And it's because of the connections that we have with our colleagues and our partners with the family hubs that we're able to provide some of that support. Without those connections, we wouldn't be able to. But if I can jump onto my soapbox, you know that vicars are always ready to drag up a soapbox. We need more people on the ground. We need more of these people on the ground. There are lots of people in these offices who monitor and oversee. If I could beg you to ground load your funding. We need people on the ground. We need people reaching into these families. We need people working across particularly the poorer parts of our borough. And I appreciate some of you represent some of the more affluent areas, and there is poverty in and amidst those areas. I'll agree with that. But my heart is for the communities, the pit villages particularly, that I serve. And I want to see more of these people on the ground. I want to see more of this work going on. And the benefit of the Adwick Family Hub, I cannot begin to describe to you. And I'm looking forward to what Your Place in the library are going to do as well. So thank you for the support you've given to the work with families, and thank you for the opportunity just to share a little bit of our story.
As you can see, it's a partnership approach. It isn't just one organisation that's meeting the needs for children, people and families in our locality. We couldn't do the work, within the Family Hub without your team and what you do as well. So it is very much a partnership approach across the whole of Doncaster. Just wanted to bring you a little bit of data, really linking into the question about, is this across the whole of Doncaster? So thinking of the Your Place team and that local help, looking at the inquiries that the team have in between. We work in quarters in the local authority, financial quarters, and these are contacts made by members of the public and by professionals just saying, can you help a family with this? Do you know where this is? Where do I go for that? So just really, because the Your Family and the Family Hubs really know where our different community organisations and faith organisations are to support families to access that as well. So we just wanted to show you the increase in number there of just inquiries that come into Your Place. Just linking into child poverty and the presenting needs, and we can see here it's a very busy slide, but if you look at the bottom in quarter two, we talk finance, housing and benefits of the key contacts for people accessing your place teams for that sort of see and solve, that really early prevention work. There was a question around how do schools support children and young people that might be struggling when they've identified them in school. And we just wanted to show you in this slide that we do lots of sort of data capturing, thinking about our education colleagues right the way through from nursery all the way through to secondary. And these are a number of contacts that go into your place but that actually lead on to a piece of work from schools. And that could be around the housing, the finance and the benefits that we've talked about, those key presenting needs coming through. So it's just to show you that schools are identifying children and people that might need that additional support, and we operate in a whole family approach. So if we identify a child and young person that needs that support, the parents will also need some support, and it's that wraparound. And we also know from an early help point of view, we have over 560 children open where the schools are actually the lead practitioners and supporting around this work as well. And I'll go on and talk about the outcomes we want to achieve. But it's just to show you that we are getting those contacts in from schools. Where they can't immediately help, they reach out for other people to help. This is the Family Hub slide. I'm going to hand over to Callum now. Is that okay?
All right, hello everyone. So this just gives an example of how the Family Hub model from like a policy perspective has evolved in recent years, and in particular the impact of the National Family Hub and Start for Life programme in terms of giving it that specificity, but also in terms of really making it clear that this community-focused early intervention and prevention is both our goal in Doncaster, but also the national focus. So in terms of order, the strands of delivery is where it first started. And you'll see there's categories of sort of services and outcomes that were provided sort of towards the end of the Cameron and Osborne era, sort of 2015, 2016. And that was the sort of start of the Family Hub conversation. However, the post-2019 and the manifesto commitment for the National Family Hub and Start for Life programme, they've really beefed that out with the Family Hub framework, which sets out those three criteria of how they see the Family Hub model working. And it's very clear that it is not a building. It is a network of services and offers that is accessible to families. There are connections between services. Everything is done to make sure that families' access to these services and their journey through services is as straightforward as possible, and that everything is done in a holistic, whole family way. So all of those issues that relate to child poverty that we've referenced are captured within the Family Hub model. And in terms of the service expectations, again, this is a big step towards some specificity within the policy area. And the framework which we are working towards identifies all of those different service areas as expectations within the Family Hub model. So all of that needs to be delivered in a community way via the Family Hub model. And all of it has minimum expectations and go further expectations that really clearly set out what needs to be done. In Doncaster, we have a very strong Family Hub offer, and we have been building from quite a high base, but over the next 18 months, we should see an even broader, more cohesive partnership offer at a community level because of it.
Thanks, Callum. The next two slides, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on here, but you'll have this to take away. So it's looking at, obviously, an example of some Family Hub data where we look at our population of children 0 to 4, and with the Start for Life, the Conception to 2 agenda that's come under the Family Hubs. And it's just by each ward, the breakdown of how many children we've got, how many are actually members of Family Hubs, and then how many are accessing. And we use that information to target services. So where we can see a particular area we might not have a high membership rate or a high accessing rate of services, then we'll go and deliver outreach there as well. So just wanted to show you that we do use that data and that intelligence to look at where we put the services and deliver services. And the next one is just showing you the Family Hub footfall, including outreach over a 12-month rolling programme, and the number of feet that we have over our thresholds. And that's not just physical Family Hubs, but it's also the outreach as well. So you'll be notice there that 0 to 4 and parents are quite high, and our 5 to 10, 11 to 18 are slightly lower. Again, a lot of these children, most of these children, in fact, all of these children should be at school or in an early years setting as well. And we've not included things like the half data in there as well. So there's a lot more information around the partnership that we could add in there. But that's the number of families and children that we know access the services. And just very on the sort of very last side really is thinking about, you know, one of the mums that spoke on our video talked about the supporting families agenda and the work that we do, and these are the outcomes that we want to achieve in Doncaster in our Really Help system and our Really Help framework really. And these are the 10 outcomes that we want to support families and evidence the difference that we've made in on all of these 10 areas. And that's how we're supporting the mitigations around child poverty in Doncaster. There are some systemic challenges. So we know there's increased need and vulnerability. There's pressure on capacity, the local profile and the national instability as well. The pressure on funding, and the funding we get through from local, you know, from central government that's time limited and ends in March 25, and how that, you know, doesn't make the services we've got sustainable moving forward past that funding. So there's just a few challenges that we have as a system as well that we need to overcome. And that is the end of the presentation. Thank you very much. I'm just conscious of time.
Thank you for that. It's brilliant. I am told that I think we're doing the presentation from Youth Council first and then asking questions as a collective. Is that right, Christine? Yeah. So we'll go to the Youth Council presentation then. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. We'll just introduce ourselves really quickly, but first of all, thank you for having us and thank you for the invite. So I'm Amelia Clark-Allen and I'm a member of Youth Parliament for Doncaster.
I'm Alex Footsoy and I'm Youth Councillor, I'm a media team member and I'm also a Young Commissioner.
I'm Samuel Finn, I'm a member of Youth Parliament for Doncaster and Youth Councillor for Macaulay.
So, throughout the summer, we have done some collaboration with the primary ambassadors, with both attending each other's meetings and collaborating on projects. And then we collaborated with Learn Sheffield on their sexual harassment in South Yorkshire schools report, where we've shared our experiences and recommendations for a toolkit that's going to be taken into schools across South Yorkshire. We know that schools and youth councils in Sheffield, Barnsley and Rotherham have taken part, and that 3 schools in Doncaster have taken part, and we can share that when the final draft is sent to us. And then, in line with recommendations in our Children and Young People plan, we've had COOF awareness training at one of our past meetings in case we need it, or to be able to share it with other people in our schools. And then we've been to youth cons all across Yorkshire and the Humber, attending workshops and media training on how to better our campaigns and to share what we've done, as well as network with all the other youth councillors and youth councils. And we've met with South Yorkshire Mayor Oliver Coppard to talk about transport. And then our members of Youth Parliament attended the annual conference to debate on what should be on the bill that they're going to take to the House of Commons in November, which is coming up shortly. And then over the summer, we collaborated with Young Advisors on our Celebrate the Directorate film, where we've interviewed heads of service and the different teams and basically asked them what their service does, why they're important, and how would it affect children, young people and families if they no longer existed.
So during your time on the Youth Council, we have 2 campaigns. So at the start of every term, you will do a survey called Make Your Mark. This goes out to everyone between the ages of 11 and 18, and it's just looking at the issues affecting young people, and you are asked to choose the most prominent. So mental health came up this year for us, and we decided to focus on eating disorders. So with this survey, we created a main priority of creating a presentation that goes out to schools to educate people on what an eating disorder is and where to go when you spot the early signs. With this, we've worked with CAMS to make sure that all of our resources that we are putting out are accurate, as well as signposting to services like COOF that we've had training with in the past. This is going out to all schools across Doncaster, as well as into our youth clubs and onto the youth work curriculum. Alongside this, we've also created a banner pen that's going to go out into all schools, because who doesn't love a good pen? And it's going to have all of the signs and symptoms of an eating disorder on, as well as helplines, just so we've got it there in your pencil case for you. And then for our second campaign, sorry, I don't know if you can hear me. This is the More Than Just a Headline campaign. So this is in line with the British Youth Council, and it focuses on hygiene poverty. Sorry, let me start again. So as part of this, we've created the Yellow Box project along with the Hygiene Bank that was mentioned earlier. So this is a box that's going to have free sanitary towels, soap, toothbrushes, toothpaste across all of our youth hubs. You don't need to meet any criteria. You can just go, you can just ask, and you'll walk away with the hygiene products. So far we've got these in the Your Place hubs, Bentley My Place, Tom Hill Youth Hub, and our first college, New College. We're hoping to get these out into all of the schools, which we've discussed with the Fairness and Wellbeing Commission, who we're discussing funding with for that. We have also produced a report with citizens' advice, which we are getting the data from a survey that's been sent out across all schools. So far, we've had 1,000 responses on the surveys, plus some verbal conversations, but that's still going. We've not hit the deadline on that yet. Where are we? This report's going to go as a part of the Member of Youth as a part of the British Youth Council campaign into theirs to back up all of their data. And we also have a seat on the Fairness and Wellbeing Commission where we share all of our data collected so far and input of youth voice.
So for this campaign, we have 4 topics that we wanted to focus on. The first one being personal hygiene products and the importance of those and the impact of them being not available to young people across Doncaster and where to access them because they can be so expensive. And then our second point was uniform and how it's taken a priority over learning, and it's currently being used as a way to discipline young people for not following those uniform policies, which we can't always follow because of how strict they are and how this doesn't impact learning. Whereas the punishment for it, which is going into isolation, does impact our learning. And there's also the issue of the cost of uniforms and how you have to buy from specific shops. The third point was the food in schools, which we wanted to focus on the quality, the quantity, the cost, and the time to eat it. And we wanted to ensure that there's reasonable adjustments across Doncaster in the UK. And then our final point is isolation in schools and how it's been used as punishment, and it's quite loosely used, and it's contributing negatively to mental health and well-being across all young people in Doncaster.
So as part of this campaign, we've conducted a survey. It's still ongoing, and we're reaching 1,000 answers at the minute, and it's still being pushed out into schools, so we haven't quite finished. So 2 of the most alarming answers we got from the survey were around school dinners and whether it's enough. The worry is really that young people recognise it themselves, and that they're recognising that the help actually isn't working. So things like free school meals, they're recognising that it's actually not enough. So for many, it can be their only hot meal a day, and I'm sure you've more than likely all heard about it before that. For a lot of young people, it gets them through the week. But we already know that schools need to be supporting it a bit more, and that really we're making a quite big shortfall. So you can see that 55.5% said that the money they receive for free school meals isn't actually enough to cover a meal. And 44.5% said it was enough. Obviously, it varies between schools and what prices are and what companies are in schools as well. But more coordination is really needed with schools and the organisations to actually make sure it stretches far enough. There has already been multiple studies on how food affects learning, especially around exam time. So really, the focus is on that the food from schools is inadequate, and that it can actually be damaging to young people's learning. So you can see from the data on the second question as well, which is, are you full after eating your lunch? The food isn't actually adequate enough to be saying you're having a full meal, so it's fine. Saying nearly 50% of people are saying it's enough to be able to buy the things, but not that the food that they're actually receiving is worth it. Yeah, so that's that one. So the second part of the slide is really 2 more questions. There's a different focus. So how much time do you have for dinner? And if you don't have the correct uniform, do you get sent to home or excluded or put in isolation? So as we know from the presentation before us, lots of schools and groups are already setting up programs to help with food and clothing. We know that on average, students have about 30 minutes for lunch, which might seem a lot, it might seem enough, but when you consider that young people then have to fit in time to go to the toilet, queuing for lunch, releasing energy, and then even preparing for the next lessons, it's just not enough, especially if you think about schools providing to hundreds or thousands of kids in some cases. So, it's pretty much been made very clear it's not enough. The information gathered also backs up comments from young people too on uniform. So it's obviously quite well known that uniform is quite expensive. And Alex has already said that some schools prefer to go for certain things. So a lot of schools have branded t-shirts or shirts or trousers, as well as a blazer, which can cost 50, 60 quid. So for a lot of people, it's really just not accessible. So these are all comments from young people and students. So I'm just going to draw your attention to one of them. So a recurring issue is inadequate food and the lack of food. Unfortunately, if students can recognise it, we ought to really be doing something about it. So a lot of the top left corner, a lot of students are having to run to lunch to ensure that they get full lunch because food runs out. So it really kind of backs up what we've already said, but this lack of food isn't really helping the free school meal system at all. Really, it's there to support young people, and it's just falling very short of what they actually need. So I'll move quickly on, but various views of students are also shared on the ideas of isolation, or ISO. So it's recognised that obviously schools have rules, and some schools will be stricter than others, and we're not disputing that. But what we're saying is the main issue is unnecessary punishments. Things like you're getting punished for wearing the wrong shoes. It's important to recognise that we're in a cost of living crisis, and getting branded clothing or school-specific clothing isn't accessible for everyone, and then that support, again, isn't there.
So we just have more comments that have been made by young people in the survey, and the first one I want to point your attention to is the one where they say they've found mould on their food multiple times, and that the food they have is not filling and is disgusting, because obviously that's a problem where if this is going to be potentially your only meal of the day, it should be adequate. And I know from experience, I have cold dinners because I don't want to eat the food that's provided in schools, because a lot of the time it's just not nice. And then someone said that one of their classmates had back-to-back lessons, and they've asked both teachers if they could go to the toilet, and the teachers refused. So it got to a point where they just stood up and walked out, and they got put in isolation for it because they just wanted to go to the toilet.
So I just want to add on to the end, alongside our campaigns, we do also run youth surgeries, which are starting back up next week, which are youth-led, and it's just across the borough of Doncaster. I think we've covered everything, so thank you for listening, and any questions?
Thank you. Thanks so much for that. I think you put us all to shame with how much you've got packed into that report, to be honest. I know all youth councillors work incredibly hard, and I really appreciate all the efforts that you put into this. I think Rebecca did agree to fund those pens, am I right? We put that on record. Yeah, just thought I'd put you on the spot there. So I'm just coming around to first question. It just strikes me the issues that have come up just off the back of what you've just told us. And I googled safeguarding, and what comes up is safeguarding means protecting a citizen's health, well-being, and human rights, enabling them to live free from harm, abuse, and neglect. Now, I'd just like to ask Rihanna. I know we don't have many powers over academies, but we do have the power of safeguarding. So for me, what you've just highlighted there, the issues that you've highlighted, things like not free water, going into isolation because you've not got the right uniform, and not enough time to eat your lunch and be able to visit the toilet. For me, they're all just basic human rights. And I think as a local authority, I just wonder what we can do about that in regards to the academies. Thank you.
So, and I can't remember the exact date, but in November we are having a strategic engagement with all educational settings across the borough, or across the city, I should say now, where we have invited, and we will be inviting our youth council to attend that and to present these slides back to those settings.
Thank you. Councillor Cox.
Thank you. Rihanna, Charlie and myself sat on a committee some time ago that did have some input of sorts into academies. Can you look at setting something like that up again, that it had involvement from the unions, from councillors, from the academies, and obviously you could include the youth council? So could that be looked at, please?
Can I just be clear about the purpose, Councillor Cox?
It was for members of the committee and the academy system, the academy principals or a representative, to have a conversation about issues between the academies and the people attending them, both as a duty of care that we have as an authority over the pupil that's in there. There were health and safety issues that were brought to that. There were all kinds of different subjects that the conversation was in there. So can we have a look at setting it up? I'm sure the T's and C's and everything else can be worked out, but please.
So I can attempt to convene something like that, but I can't force academies to attend that. But I'll consider that, and we'll have a conversation with you to see how we facilitate that.
Antoinette Drinkhill.
Hi, thanks. Good evening. It's just a bit of a follow-on from that. I don't know whether the regional commissioner will be somebody that you might get in touch with, just simply because I am seriously quite shocked that children are getting less than 15 or 20 minutes to do all the things they need to do, and probably much less than that, along with things like the food and the water. I mean, I'm speechless, really.
So am I.
Councillor Anderson.
The most worrying thing for me, I just found it astonishing reading that they're having to run to the food hall because they're running out of food. It'd be interesting to know how often that is happening and on what scale, because it shouldn't happen at all, should it?
Whilst we haven't got numbers for that, it is on a daily basis, and we have found that across most schools, we are finding that students, by the time you get to the end of the queue, they are running out. Am I also just okay to explain what isolation is as well, because we found at some previous meetings that it wasn't very well known. So things like in your schools, all schools have uniform policies. So if someone is wearing ballet slippers, just like these ones, and they have little gold pieces on, you will be sent to isolation in certain schools. Isolation is basically a room where you cannot see other students. You are supervised by a teacher, and it differs in each school. So some schools will provide work, others you're reading out of a textbook, just for little things that families cannot afford and that are not simply in the budget. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
So just on that, when you say they're sent to isolation, is that without finding out the reason why they haven't got the proper uniform? Or
that just depends on school to school. Most of the time, you will be told, but it is just simple things like, for example, you've not got the school logo on your shirt, or your shoes have got a little logo on, no matter how discreet.
Which, like you said, during a cost of living crisis, it's not always possible to have that correct uniform. I wonder if schools started putting parents in isolation, things might change. Yep.
Thank
Sam?
you. Purely just going back off what you said as well, it's also the question of, are parents actually being notified of why the kid's been sent? And is that support with the school between them? I know, not to like isolate any schools at all, but there are plenty of schools across the city, like Amelia's already said, that have different rules, and it's obviously we've got to respect that, but having that balance between them all of kind of like a flat line basis rule, where really it's ruining the quality of education people are getting.
So just to bring, although absolutely, totally supportive of what the young people are saying, is I have to also say that there are schools that are doing really well in terms of behaviour management, in terms of the policies around inclusion, which this falls under in terms of school uniform and things like that. So just want to bring a little bit of balance. Appreciate that there are schools that are not getting it right, but there are also plenty of schools that do get it right. So just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, and I completely take that point, because I know schools that are getting it right as well, but it's really difficult to understand how it can vary so vastly from school to school. Councillor Needham?
Thank you. So in terms of isolation, then, is it like a C4, a straight, do you have C4s and C2s and C3s? Is it that kind of malarkey?
Again, it just changes from school to school.
Okay, yeah, I totally understand that. Just in terms of school uniform, and I'd seek guidance from people who know these things like you guys over there. I seem to recall there were a change in law around branded uniforms, and though that might not apply to, for example, say a blazer, it did include things like jumpers and stuff, and that was supposed to be September 23, 22, but then it were extended to Christmas. Is that bear anything to do with this? Does anybody know anything? Has that been brought in?
I don't know the exact detail of that, but I will follow that up and come back to you, Councillor Needham.
It is up to the school. Courtney has checked through it. It is down to the school, so it is their choice. So whether there was any legislation passed, I don't really know. But so it's completely that school's choice.
Can I just add as well, with this report, we know we are not asking to get rid of school uniform altogether. We're just asking to make it realistic. Even things like maybe iron-on patches so if you are wanting to have like branded jumpers, provide an iron-on patch so parents can go to places like Asda, Sainsbury's and get them for cheaper. There's no need for these prices.
That was supposed to be the emphasis of the law change, but as I say, I'm not an expert on that, so maybe it could be something that we can look at and something that we can discuss with academies across the city. But yeah, I absolutely agree.
Thank you. Can we go to Councillor Anderson for the planned questions? Thanks.
Yeah. Do we know the numbers of children presenting themselves at school who are not eating properly, how schools are addressing the issue, and what support is the local authority offering?
So I'll take that. Thank you, Councillor. In terms of simple answer, no. So the information is not routinely collated in terms of what children are presenting with and how they're accessing it. However, what we do know is that the number of schools who reach out to the family hubs, etc., as you've seen in the presentation, will support children when they are reaching out to them. Lots of schools do support the use of food banks, school uniform banks, it's a bread and butter thing. It's not just a bread and butter thing, but much more to support the children and families that are presenting. Your Life Doncaster website and Families Information Services is also available in terms of self-help and things like that. So if we wanted to have that information, we would have to survey schools, but again, I can't make schools to comply to that service. I will say, though, that schools do have, in the majority of time, the best interests of children and young people at heart. And so we'll do whatever they can to support families, because we know that that's in the best interest of the children, and it's a good thing for schools to do anyway.
Thank you. My question was around what support is being given to children who cannot afford a school meal every day. I mean, we know the threshold's quite low for sort of qualifying for free school meals. And the other thing is with the free school meals, as the report highlighted by the Youth Council, is it right that they should be choosing whether to have a drink or a cookie? It's not really a meal that they're being provided with. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll kick off and then Karen is going to help me a little bit here. So first of all, good news is that we are auto-enrolling families onto free school meals. So we know that we've had a lower uptake around free school meals by families before because they have to opt into that. We are now implementing an auto-enroll, which means that families that are entitled because of the benefit that they're accessing will automatically be enrolling for a free school meal, and it would be an opt-out rather than a presenting themselves. So I think that's good news to start off with. Karen, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, thank you. I know within our communities we're doing a lot, not just within the school. So I work for public health, and I actually host the Food Bank Forum and have a lot of sort of engagement with the food banks, and lead on the bread and butter thing as well. So as regarding the children and families, we've got at the moment 4 bread and butter outlets within Doncaster, and we're just looking at mapping the survey, mapping where those families are coming from and presenting for the bread and butter to best place the 5th one that's been got the allocation for it. We're doing that by looking at where I've got all the details of where those families are and what schools and everything and all that data where they're accessing. But we're also looking at where the hosts are, and I know this is one of the great partnerships we've got. One of the bread and butter things is actually in one of the central family hubs. So we're looking at having the bread and butter things within different settings. Some of the food banks are hosting them, some are in community settings, one's in the family hub. Does that encourage those families more to access and reach out to the support from the bread and butter thing? But we've also got a lot of voluntary and community organisations that are now setting up the breakfast clubs and offering food to parents and families before school as well. We've also, as we've said, we've got a lot of the we support the food banks to access funding to use creative ways to support families as well, and it's how we can work with the schools to identify them, you know, and get those families who really need it and to really access, you know, to get the support and the services that are out there.
Councillor Anderson.
Hi, yeah, just on the bread and butter thing, is that the one where I've heard a little bit about it, where you actually pay a fee for certain?
Yeah, so there is, at this present time, as it's delivered at the moment, there is one payment offer, which is an £8.50 charge. The actual, when they put their pitch in, if you like, you know, for us to sort of, because it is commissioned up to 2025, there is a staggered offer, so they can go up to, you know, a larger family, £17.50. We have had a lot of demand across all the 4 sites. In the Central Family Hub was the last one to have been facilitated, which has only been running out a couple of months. But we've got an awful lot on the roll, if you like, of how families requesting the service, and we're in the process of evaluating it. I contract manage the bread and butter thing, and I've had some really positive feedback, and I have, to be honest, had a bit of, you know, some where the quality or the variety of the foods has probably not been what they've anticipated. The feedback that I get from the bread and butter thing, it is the bread and butter thing, I'm not making that up, is that they are dependent on what produce is available to them. So we are doing a lot of work with them to make it, to cleanse who is registered, because we get families get registered, and then to cleanse it because we've identified that they're registering at multiple sites, and to also how many times that they are getting it as opposed to some of the others, if that makes sense. So there is a lot of work going on to sort of, because it is not just a couple of months thing. These will be around till 2025, so it's a good few years, you know, that we've got this service, which will support people getting out of poverty. We also support a lot, and I know Reverend will know, we support a lot of the food pantries as well. So there is the food banks, but we also, and the family hubs are really connected to them, that we've got the food pantries, the food banks and the bread and butter thing. So it's all steps that we've got for families to really try to get them out of poverty. And the hygiene bank's one of the services we do support heavily, you know, as being public health. We are constantly trying to find ways that how we can continually to support and, you know, to carry on doing the good work that they do for the families.
Yeah. I won't go on because there's 100 questions I'd like to answer. It's just that I work on, I volunteer at the food train at the Home Scar Centre in Rosington, and I know it's been mentioned about
Yes.
being used there, that's why, yeah, so.
I'll chat to you later about it.
So thanks for that plug, Councillor Anderson. I'm going to go to Antoinette, but just to clarify, what is the difference between a food bank and a food pantry?
So a food bank is in effect, there's no charge, and some of them across Doncaster is a referral process. We've got various sort of offers, if you like. Some of them is a referral process, which I try to support and encourage at the Food Bank Forum, but you've got some of them who don't have that, and they'll just, you know, anybody can turn up. Then the food pantry is a charging, so it is to get people out of poverty. So you would turn up at a food pantry, and you would say you pay an annual fee of £20, and then you would pay to be a member of a food pantry, and then you would pay £5 every time you shop. And then within the pantry, there's various shelves. There's probably 10 different varieties of shelves, if you like. It's really hard to describe, and they get to choose what food sources they like in those sort of compartments, if you like. So it gives them, they have the choice and the variety. There is also chilled food. So when there are food pantries, there's a lot of food safety legislation that they have to adhere to sort of get that, because they do serve chilled food and things like that as well, and they've got fridges and everything. So then the idea is they would start a food bank, we would then encourage to a food pantry, and then the last would be the bread and butter thing that we would encourage them to go to.
Thank you. Can I bring in Antoinette now? Thanks.
Yeah, just to say I was very pleased to hear about auto-enrolment for free school meals, because I think that's absolutely massive, and so many people miss out because they don't or can't apply. But added on to that, has any work been done to gather information in terms of quality, cost and quantity of what schools are providing for school lunches? Because what we're hearing is that the quality and the cost and the quantity are all inadequate in some places.
Short answer, no. Yes, we need to work. We will get on with that.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll move on to a question from Councillor Hogarth.
When people with disabilities, not just send children, but someone might twist their ankle or something, so it comes to lunchtime, and for quite a while they're going to be slower. So when it gets to queue, they're going to be very limited listening to things. And this brilliant report these have done, the Youth Council. Them who are slower, for whatever reason, are always going to be at the back of the queue. And they might say, well, what's the point? There's nothing there. And especially if they've got mental disability, they might say, well, I'm not, you know, what help is available for people who are always going to be at the back of the queue for food? Do we know, you know?
So I would hope that there will be pastoral support within schools to help children with either special educational needs, etc., to get, or as you say, when there's injury stuff, I would expect pastoral support to support those children to get food. But Councillor Hogarth, I can't guarantee you in every school that they get to the front of the queue or that they're getting enough, because as we've heard from young people tonight, that might not be the case.
Can we just ask them, is there things where people get help if they're not able to?
Again, it just varies school to school. And then even if you are taking those people to the front of the queue, you're still leaving someone else at the back. So I think the main focus should be just making sure there is enough for everyone in the first place.
Some schools do run 5-minute early passes. I know my school in Cantley do run a system of if you've got an injury or a reason to be leaving a lesson 5 minutes early, it gives you the access to get there a bit quicker. But just try and make it pretty clear, we're not trying to like attack schools on it, but what we're saying is this is what young people have told us, and it's across the board. It's not saying every school is included in that data. It's saying that the children that have answered it from whichever schools are involved have come back with that. So obviously the answers are varied because of that, not just targeting one.
Can I just say, I can say from my school, and I think some other schools, there's a separate corridor or area where you would go if you had SEND or you'd hurt yourself to the point where you struggle to get around school, and they would either bring you your food for you, or they would let you have like an early lunch where you'd go before everyone else. So again, it just varies by school, but there are some schools that do a pretty good job of making sure you get food. So.
Okay, it's my turn. I'm going to ask some questions about child poverty, if that's okay. First, I'd just like to thank you for your presentations and letting us know about the tremendous offer and the partnership work that's happening across our city. And also massive thanks to all the staff, officers and partners who deliver it, because that's absolutely, it's amazing, so thank you for that. I've been nice to you. I also just wanted to say, Amelia, would you like to be a politician? Because that answer was tremendous. Well done for that. So, okay, poverty then. Joseph Rowntree Foundation report said that 4 million people in the UK are living in destitution. And that's a rise of 61% since 2019, which is a bit of a frightening kind of statistic. In the slides that you shared, Alison, there was a dip. I wondered if if you could, is there a reason for that? I understand that the figures were national. Do you want to answer that now and let me finish, or do you want me to ask you some in a minute? Okay, cool. And then, so my other one is about, there were quite a lot of poverty identified, and so, and the video were quite powerful about, with the mums saying that they did without this and they did without that, and we've had a lot of speak about food banks, and I volunteer for a food bank myself every week since, well, beginning of COVID, so I know all about it and what that's like in families. But I just wondered, are there any additional factors? So, for example, parents who turn to crime to provide for the children and families, or ASB, and something that's well documented, and it's not just about poverty, but since COVID we've had lots of mega issues around mental health. And so it's no surprise to me that if mental health is affecting young people, then surely it's affecting adults too. So in terms of the bigger picture across, if you're looking at a family service, then has that been taken into consideration, and what kind of things are in place for parents who are struggling as well?
Yeah, so thank you. So in terms of the data, obviously the data is quite dated, it's 21-22, and there isn't any national or local data updated from that. Even the data that we have in Doncaster Council, it's still provisional, it's not been formally identified. What it is showing is that slight dip in 21-22, but we also know there was an uplift in the universal credit at that point, and also some COVID recovery fund was allocated at that point as well. So whether that contributes to it and we see a rise, because obviously we have, Callum has read that paper from Joseph Rowntree, and obviously it's talking about the breadth and the depth of child poverty that we need to do a bit more research around, really. And the second question, obviously everything that we do in terms of the services we deliver is around a whole family approach. So it is around obviously children, people, it's all about families. And actually the report that from Action for Children, which is the cost of children crisis, it's parents that are actually in poverty, aren't they? And actually the impact on single parents and the impact on working families actually that don't get some or not much universal credit, and the impact of them as they're trying to pay all the bills, the cost of living rise as well. So everything that we do supports that whole family approach. So what I haven't included in here is the work we do around the early help pathway, for example, where we support families that may have had there might be some criminal activity going on, or there may be some mental health concerns and worries going on at that time. So we've got a breadth of other data that I haven't brought today around that whole family approach that we do as well.
Can I add to that, please? So that's really helpful, Alison. Just to add to that is I think the complexity of child poverty is just unbelievable, and we keep on talking about the complex world that we live in, isn't it? So I think there are 2 or 3 things in my mind that helps people out of poverty. One is education. So the better we educate our young people and our children and young people, we prevent poverty from the future, because those young people are then skilled and able to enter into a world of further education and work. So that's really, really important. Also helping parents into employment. That helps with helping people out of poverty. And we've got great success stories about actually some of the moms that volunteers with it, or moms that access family hub services, then start volunteering and actually going into paid employment. So we need to create those opportunities for our families to access employability. And that's why our education and skills strategy is really important. Our education and skills strategy, all age strategy, from cradle to career, or from cradle to career. And it is about creating not only pathways for our young people to progress and make it easy as possible for them to progress, but also to enable people that want to reskill or upskill to have that access to the education that they require. The second thing is we know that in Doncaster we have got lots of low-paying jobs available and people accessing that. But actually there's a number of higher-level jobs that's also available in Doncaster, but our local people don't have the qualification. So how do we help people to access or to progress to level 3 and above qualifications as such? And then the third thing for me is thinking about the communities that we live in. How do we make that inclusive? How do we make more inclusive? So families that has got English as an additional language, how do we make the services that we provide accessible to those families so that they can access it as well? Some of that is cultural, some of that is language barriers, some of it is just overcoming some of those difficulties that they have and not understanding what the system, how we work, how our support systems work, and I would say a healthy skepticism, or a healthy, not fear, but a healthy nervousness about accessing services locally. So we need to overcome those barriers within our communities so we can provide the right support to families. And all of that contributes to dealing with the issue of child poverty.
Thank you for that. And I guess my knowledge from food bank deliveries, which I do every week, as I've said, the demographic where the ward I represent in Armthorpe is single parents or pensioners, and they're the big gap. But then there's kind of like an underlying bit of tension where I think the saying is everybody's a month away from destitution. So people have not got the reserves that they once had. People have not got the savings that they once had if they had a bit of a rough time. So if people lose a job for whatever reason, which could be anything at all, this time of year, then people are really struggling within a month. They might have a month's wages, and then, it's really a struggle. So I think it's really reassuring. And I think that we've got all these services at Family Hub, and we've got your place and my place and whatever, all that lot. I think that's really fantastic. And I think you're quite right. There's a gap between people crossing that threshold to ask for information, but you're aware of that anyway, so thank you.
Sorry. I think what a really important part of everything that we do is the link that we've got with the community and faith organisations, and how we empower our communities to be resilient and to support each other. And I think the family hubs and the food bank are a great example of how they are a place where people know that they can go and get support, and that sometimes we underestimate the ripple effect that it has, that getting that message out within the communities comes through those residents, and actually when they've had the positive experiences, which I've been in communities a long time, that ripple effect speaks volumes and spreads wilder than anything that we can do. So I think when, to get the positive impact, it's massive, so.
Thank you. I think it's that old saying, it takes a village to raise a child. It's that analogy. We are moving on to the couple of questions that we have got that are more sort of centralised towards the family hubs. But I just wanted to say thank you for the video, because we moved on to Youth Council pretty quickly. I just wanted to say, for me, my opinion is how powerful that video was to hear those stories from and that lived experience. So thank you for that. And also just to mention, talking about different ages, it struck me on the visit to the family hub, the integration of all ages. There was an older lady that brought a skill of knitting, and I think, yeah, it's called a family hub, but it shouldn't just be for those preschool children. I think it did strike me as it's just for the whole community. So I think that should be celebrated as well. Thank you. So we've got the question from Councillor Cox.
Thank you. I'd just like to echo some of the things that Chair's just mentioned there. And the visit to Hub were absolutely fantastic. You know, I mean, what work that Stephen's doing, that you're all doing there, it was just phenomenal. And the way that the food bank works with referrals, I think, you know, it's just great. But what I'd like to know is if that template that you've got working so well there is being replicated in every locality. Because I know, and I think Rihanna's probably going to get upset when I'm going to mention the part of our ward that isn't represented, with areas of deprivation that I've just got up on here again on 21 census reports, that there's nothing there for them. So is there anything that is going to be within the Bessica Cantley area, or are our residents that are within that area going to have to go to Rosington or further out that they can't afford to get to because it'd be 2 buses? But is there anything there? Thank you.
So I'll answer that one, Councillor Cox. Absolutely, we should be going to where children, people and families are and residents are. It's not about them coming to us, really. So in terms of the family hub model, I don't know if Tara wants to come in and talk to you about how we replicate that across the whole of Doncaster. You know, we're very lucky to have the 12 physical buildings, but a family hub is not the building. The family hub, as you felt when you came to that, it's that ethos, isn't it? It's that core belief of supporting our children, people and families. So we've got lots of data, and those slides showed you that we could see obviously the children that are in that ward area, are they accessing those services, and if they're not, we need to go in, we need to be out in the communities and doing the pop-ups and meeting those residents where they are.
So, Councillor Cox, the point that you're making is a really valid point around how do we ensure that our services are accessible to everybody. One of those things are making sure that children and families are registered with a family hub at the start of their life. So, not, you know, when children are born, how do we get them registered with family hubs? I think your point is broader though, because there are other children, young people older than 5 that need some support with services. So how do we publicise that? The point that Alison is making is really valid in terms of just because we don't have a physical building in a place doesn't mean that we're not delivering in there, but it becomes harder to engage with families in those communities, and we need to continue to work on that. So there will be a family hub and a network that covers or that supports that area that you're particularly talking about. And what we need to make sure is that those families are able to access those services, not by them going to services, but for us to outreach into those places.
Your comment about partnerships, my reflection on that is it very much depends on whether the partners are there. These people can't work in partnership with nobody who's there. The Adwick Hub is hopefully blessed by being just across the road from quite an active and lively faith community that's made a commitment to run the food bank. There are other parts of the borough, of the city, where there aren't those communities able to provide the volunteer hours to be able to do that. And you know, you can't work in partnership when there aren't partners to work with. So I think that might explain some of why there's the discontinuities about partnership working. You can't manufacture a partner in a community even if you want to.
Yeah, I get that, 100% I get that. And one of the issues with the area that we talk about is that it is under our ward, but is in central locality. So it just completely misses everything. And I mean, we've only been grumbling about it for 8 years. We're getting there, I think, aren't we, Rihanna? After 8 years.
I'm hoping so, Councillor Cox. I'm hoping so. Can I just to be very clear though, or regardless of which boundary it falls in, there are a family hub that are looking after that community, and we should be providing services to that part of the community, regardless of where a boundary sits.
All I was going to add is that there is a building, County Community Centre, on Goodison Boulevard, that is just directly opposite the people that need the support. Thank you.
And we'll look into how we can deliver potentially from there.
Thank you. I've got a question myself, actually. How will the new childcare funding from the government impact the role of the family hubs? If all the children from September 2025 are entitled to childcare, then will there still be a role for the early years in the family hubs? And just the second part of that is, and is the funding that's being put in now kind of being wasted if it's going to have to be remodelled in 2 years?
So I'll come in and then Callum may want to join in at that point. So absolutely not, it won't be wasted. So we would really, really encourage all of our children and young people to access the early year entitlement. We're really excited about that coming in and what difference that will make to families. So obviously that childcare is funded for them, which means they can go to work. And also the wraparound from the 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. The family hub model is much more than just obviously working with the child. It's the whole family. There's a lot of home learning in there. So even when children go to early years or schools, there's going to be some programs around home learning. So actually, how do we enhance the support that's in the nurseries and the schools actually in the home and that parent learning as well? There's a lot of work around the very, very early days, at conception to 2, around sort of parent-child relationship, attachment as well. So obviously if we get in there much earlier and support these families around building really strong attachments, hopefully that'll have an impact on those children throughout their life course as well. So the offer, as you see, is quite huge from a family hub delivery model, and we need to extend the hours. You know, some of our family hubs are open 8:30 or 5. We've got some hubs that we're piloting longer, but actually in essence these buildings need to be open much later, open at the weekend, and there needs to be community venues that children, people and families access. So give us a bit of time. Callum and the team are working on that, at how we sort of increase their operating hours and we get more services in there to meet the needs for children, people and families. But it's a huge offer, and it has to meet the needs of the local people as well. So it's great that the government have given us a framework to operate against, but actually what does that look like in Cantley, and why might that be different to Hexthorpe, and why might that be different, you know, to Rosington? So we need to look at that on a local need as well. We've got a lot of work, Callum, ahead of us, haven't we, in terms of the Start for Life and the family hub delivery. Very strong base, but we need to build on that, absolutely.
And can I also ask, you know, in terms of workforce, we know that there are, I think it's 3 hubs in each locality. So how many people are employed and how many volunteers would that include?
Tara, do you want to answer this one?
So across all the localities, we've got 115 members of staff. So they're directly employed by, obviously, Family Hub. There's 92 full-time equivalents of them. So we have 2 service managers and 4 locality Family Hub managers. So they oversee the 3 family hubs in each locality. And we've got 2 pathway workers as well who manage the early help side of it and supporting families on a one-to-one basis. Then we've got, we've currently got 17 active volunteers, and they range from different things. So they could be supporting on business support, they could be supporting in early years groups, the need nanas, you know, Rosemary that you've talked about earlier, you know, doing the knitting and obviously providing things. So there's a variety of different roles, handy people that come in and just help out, you know, making gardens and things like that look nice. And again, we work with DWP on that, so we've kind of put out our offer of what vacancies, volunteer vacancies are available, and then they send us people that could potentially are not ready to go back into work yet but need a little bit more experience, and they come and do the volunteering with us. We also offer work placements as well to support with
the education. So we've had quite a lot of our parents that have gone on to do a course in college and have asked to come and do the work placement with us.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to come in, Councillor Hogarth?
Yeah, just on volunteers, is there any council staff use their volunteer time, which they were allowed, I think, 2 days a year? And do any of them use their volunteer time in that? And do any of you use your volunteer time that you're allowed to volunteer in these type of places, and encourage your staff to do that?
So I'll answer that one. So we have a number of staff that are school governors, for example, that support our schools and local communities where they live. So they volunteer and are supported through work through that. We have got quite a lot of staff who've got caring responsibilities in their own right, whether that's young children or their elderly parents that they're caring for as well. So they give up a lot of the time on their personal family needs as well. I think there's a whole range of staff that do volunteer. So we've got staff that do work in local food banks. We've had a member of staff that was in Rebecca's team that's recently just left us, but her volunteering hours were huge in terms of supporting her local church, being a real key member in that local community. For all individual staff, I can't answer that. That's something I'd have to go back and explore, but we would welcome our staff to be volunteers, because actually we need volunteers across the workforce.
Now, there used to be a council policy. I don't
There
know if it's
is.
still there.
It's still there.
How many staff are actually taking them volunteer time out of the allocation, and how do you encourage your staff to use that?
So can I come
Are
in?
you doing that, setting an example?
So I'm hoping that we are setting some example, Councillor Hogarth. Can we do more? Of course we can do more. Can we promote it more? Of course we can. I can't give you the figures on how many people are actually using the volunteer hours as per the policy, because that's kind of a corporate thing. But absolutely, your point about promoting this amongst our own staff to volunteer is absolutely critical. And of course, we will promote people to do the volunteering in our family hubs rather than anywhere else.
Just to add to that as well, in the recent floods and the floods back in 2019, our staff were the team that were on the ground with the wellies on, the coats on, putting the sandbags out, providing food banks, play activities in a gym, for example, for those families that were placed out of the home. So absolutely they will respond based on local need.
Thank you. So the second part of that question was how flexible is the service for staff? Because am I right in thinking that you only have a choice of sort of doing, is it 18 hours or 37 hours?
So that is a recent change for some of our staff groups, so around our early years workers, and that's come from staff themselves, if I'm honest, about obviously how do they meet their own personal needs, but also how do we meet service needs as well. So that's a recent change. We've had quite a lot of staff that are really happy for that. They want to be part-time, they don't want to be full-time. We've got some staff that want to be full-time. We've not had any worries or concerns that I'm aware of around that policy change. But we have quite a lot of different job offers as well, and lots of different staff. When we talk about family hub staff, I think it's important to remember it's not just about the Doncaster Council staff, it's the partnership staff. So when we talk about family hubs, it's that umbrella term. So we have lots of different partners in and out working throughout those buildings that work a whole different range of shift patterns as well. So in terms of our staff, the early years staff, it is 18.5 or full-time, and that's to support the staffing group and the service delivery.
Thank you. Just lastly, what's the difference between an early years worker and an early days worker?
I'm going to let Tara answer that one.
So an early years development worker, they deliver the sessions to families, so the first friends groups, the rhythm, rhyme, story time, whatever that might be. So they're out there delivering those sessions. They're supporting families, with finding the 2-year fund in place if that's what they're needing. The support with quite a wide range of things. They're delivering the outreach groups in obviously outreach venues as well as family hubs. The early days workers are part of the New Start for Life offer. And they are working with families from conception up to the age of 18 months. And having 5 key contacts within that period that works alongside our other partners as well. So we're not duplicating any work, we're working alongside to offer key contacts have that familiar face for that family. So if they do need anything along that journey, they know that they can come into the family hub and they can speak to their early days worker. And that early days worker will signpost them on to whatever it is that they need that support with. But yeah, I don't know if you want to add any more on early days worker, Callum, but I think that's...
No, that pretty much covered it. I mean, the only other thing to acknowledge is that prior to the early days workers being added into the structure, is that the early years development workers were being spread very, very thin and asking to do a hell of a lot with their time. So by adding this capacity and giving them a focus on the first 1,001 days, we know that that is a very important time in terms of child development and improving outcomes, and by giving that specialised focus on attachment and bonding, emotional well-being, and all of the antenatal and postnatal education that comes with that, you get the dual benefit of families having a better access to a professional who has a focus on 1,001 days, and a higher quality, more focused early years and child development offer.
Thank you. So we've got a question from Councillor Needham.
Hi, and it's for you, Alison, I think, because it's your report I'm referring to, and specifically paragraph 15. And I think it links into paragraph 25 as well, but, you know, a bit of cross-referencing for you. And it's about evidence-based tools. You speak about evidence-based tools and how they're used. I just wondered if you could give an example of what they are, how they work, and what data that informs.
Absolutely, that would be my pleasure. I can answer that one. So in terms of evidence-based tools, we actually use our Early Intervention Foundation, who validate evidence-based measures, really. So they inform us which tools have been used and been validated and show that they make a difference. So we've got a range of different ones, to be honest. So for our online parenting programme, which is funded for all residents in Doncaster, whether you're a parent, a step-parent, an auntie, an uncle, a sibling even, there's a whole range of programmes on there, and they have a pre and post questionnaire that are clinical-based evaluation tools, so they're health-based ones, really. And that's open to people to complete if they want to or not. But we know the impact from the scores of those tools. I can't remember all the names of them because there's quite a few different ones and they're all health ones, but they are evidence-based tools. That's our online parenting. For our face-to-face parenting that's delivered through our parenting and family support team or through our partners, we tend to use a strengths and difficulties questionnaire, which is a triangulated between the child, the parent and the school. And then we also use the Warwick Wellbeing as well, just to look at the impact we have on parents. And again, they're tools that are validated not only from Early Intervention Foundation, but also from the Supporting Families programme that say these are the tools that you can use to measure impact. We've also in Doncaster many years ago purchased the triangle stars, so the outcome stars. So we use a whole range of outcome stars, which are evidence-based, and the evidence base is growing on the Early Intervention Foundation. So we use the Family Star Plus, for example, and there's 10 points on that Family Star Plus, and it's parents can report where they think they are on the scaling, as like a scaling question at pre and post, and we use that for children on the My Stars. We've got relationship stars, we've got change stars, we've got an early days, an early worker star. There's quite a few different stars that we use to measure that impact. We were a Signs of Safety local authority, so we use the Signs of Safety approach and the scaling question. You know, quite some simple tools as well for us to use as practitioners and also for families as well. And we also look at, when we measure impact, we look at reduction in vulnerability levels as well as the difference we've made on those tools. So we've got a whole range, depending on what we're delivering, a whole range of different tools that would measure.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm just interested, my colleague Mark Finnis always says that one size fits one. And so in terms of parenting programmes, which I am familiar with, I just wondered if there were any scope to kind of like make that suitable for that particular person, because otherwise it'll, you know, one size fits one, it doesn't fit all. So maybe you can do that. I've got another question, but you still want to answer that one.
So I'm hoping that the measurement tools that we use come from the base of where a family is at. So, for example, if you have a family star or an outcome star of some sort, you will assess based on what you will have a conversation with the family as to where they feel they are on that scale, and then we will scale up and down at the end of a program. So hopefully that means that one size fits one person.
Wonderfully put. Thank you, Anna. Okay, that's very good. And I'd just like to say that we know we've got a parent here, and I don't want to, disregard you. And I just wondered if you wanted an opportunity to speak, because obviously you've made the time to come here and do that, and I didn't want that not to happen. So if you want to say something, please do, and if not, then that's fine too. So, but thank you.
I just want to say thank you for the invite here. I did want to get my story across about the early help because it has made a massive impact on my life and my daughter's life as well. Because I'm so emotional about this, I do feel like it's quite important for me to mention that the early help has made a massive difference to my life, and I thank every single one of you for that. And I feel like it's important to get the message out to other parents that they're not on their own, and there is any help you need, there is help out there. And even if it is, I've been employed, I have been working for the NHS for 10 years, and even though I was still a working parent, I still struggled to pay my childcare. I had to get food banks and things, and I did really struggle. And even though I felt like I could do with like a different career, they're helping me start that now. So I just want to say thank you for that as well. Thank you.
High praise indeed. Well done, everybody, and thank you for coming to speak to us.
Thank you. I think we've got the last question now from Antoinette Drinkhill.
Thank you. Really, it was around paragraph 22, which was a short but fully loaded paragraph. And I think before I'd listened to the presentations, and I realised it isn't easy to put into a short summary aspects that have been described. So I'll kind of leave that question, but just pick up on one thing that's in the paragraph, and that is capacity will come from a simpler system, as well as higher number of lead practitioners. But what do you envisage a simpler system would be that would support your work? Because obviously it's really important, you're doing super well, but there are other things that might help you to do even better and more efficiently.
That is a really, really good question, and we're still working that through. But actually the answer would be when children, people and families tell us they know where to access that support, they can access that support, and we've made it accessible for them all, regardless of their circumstances. And we're not quite there yet. We know some families still struggle to access that support. They don't know where to find it still. They don't know where to go and ask for that. So we just want the support to be available for children, people and families where they live, in the place where they live. And that could be delivered from voluntary and community sector, it could be from faith sector, it could be from local authority or our NHS colleagues. But actually it's those families knowing where to get that support. We don't know the answers to that yet, but we're working on those now as we speak.
Can I add to that, please? So I think it's really important that services in communities are tailored to the needs and the voices of communities, and that continues to change on a annual basis, yearly basis, 3-yearly basis, or whatever. And so I think so what Alison is saying is there's nothing wrong with the system, we're just moving with the time. And that's really, really important. So listening, and we've had loads of things specific to Doncaster that's worked. So for example, the transition of the children's social care function back into the council has provided new opportunities for us to look at things differently and go, actually, for a family, how many points of access is there into services, and actually how do we make that easier? So that's the work that we are all underway. And the point that the Reverend made earlier about you can only do partnership with partners that's in the place. Well, actually through the work that Karen and her colleagues doing about Doncaster is about how do we build community resilience? So how do we create the partners to work with? So, and I think that's a local authority responsibility. We need to stimulate voluntary community sector, faith sector, to engage in building resilience in communities. So that's what that paragraph says in a nutshell. Thank you.
Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, just that family and residence video, right at the beginning, the lady who said, she wasn't confident going out in public and that, so she had that initial, when she reached out, felt that initial meeting at home, which were brilliant, which obviously helped her going forward. So there's a capacity there to help every person that wants that initial first meeting at home.
In the Start for Life programme, absolutely, with some of the roles that Callum and Tara spoke about, our vision would be that all children families come section to 2 are seen and have a regular home visit pattern. in partnership with our midwives and our health visitors, and it's, you know, it's a partnership approach to that. As children go through the transitions, that becomes a little bit more problematic in terms of they're going to school. So actually those children are in schools, and it's actually how do we engage with our schools and our academies to make sure that they're giving the right information, advice and guidance out to their families. How do we touch base with those? I know, you know, your family teams are in there doing drop-ins in the schools, and it's just, we need to continue that, particularly in our primary and secondary schools. Have we got capacity to go and visit everybody in the home? The honest answer is no. But actually what we would like to think is that once we have identified that need and a partner's identified that need, that then we can target those services to those families that need it.
Thank you. I think it brings us to an end, really, to then go on to recommendations. Does the scrutiny panel note the content of the report and associated presentations? Does the scrutiny panel note that the visit for members was positive, providing lots of opportunities for discussion with residents and practitioners to help understand the challenges and services provided? And as a panel, do we champion the work of our early help system, family hubs and your place teams? I've got a few things to add to that. I think to thank you for the data by ward, and it's much appreciated, and if those slides can be sent out. And you know, I think one of the most important things is to keep sort of an update maybe on Rihanna's meeting with the academies to see what can be done about the issues that the Youth Council have kindly highlighted. And maybe just to add, if there are any small pots of money to throw at Youth Council's way for their amazing projects, because I know they've got so many ideas. Yeah, so they've got the pens, probably want hoodies, and they've got a shopping list for you, so I'll leave that for them to get back to you on that. So, yeah.
Can I just ask the Youth Council, when they've finished the report, could we actually have a copy of it? Because the information in there, I think, is very important, and we do need to act on it all. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, is that okay? I know we've got quite a lot of information there anyway, but do you want to add to that?
No, it's okay. It's just that we can send it over to you once it's all finalised.
Just to be clear, that report will not be naming and shaming specific schools, but it's the general view of how young people feel. I just need to balance a little bit because, you know, I appreciate what our youth council is saying, is fully supportive of what they are saying, and will do everything, and have got a list of follow-up actions for tomorrow. But just our school system is also doing the right thing for our kids.
So if we can have the report and just blank out the school names. Yeah. Thank you to the young advisors as well. I know they've sat there listening to all this. Thank you for giving up your time for this as well. So that's an end to the meeting. Thank you, everybody. Sorry, we have got to pass over to Christine now for the work plan.
Thank you, Chair. Just very, very quickly, the work plan's there for the panel's information and for you to follow through the year. You can see the work that you've been undertaking. You can see the work that the other panels are undertaking as well. And also, for information, the forward plan of key decisions.
Right, thank you.